Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Jared Hess, taking on all the roles of Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One role can decide the fate of many things. Welcome to episode 35 of the Queen of Shadows podcast on Roll, Ponder, and Play. I'm Jared Hess, Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. In our previous episode, near nightfall, Eilwen and her companions engage in hand-to-hand combat against the 4 warrior priests, who seek their death for blaspheming against Delos the High One. The companions slay the warrior priests, but a few moments after they fall, tar-like shadow creatures rise from the fallen forms and infect others in the settlement. The companions flee Longfalls to the west. Finding a modicom of safety brought by distance and height, they watch the settlement struggle against the spreading darkness. In the nighttime, they see several buildings in the settlement burst into flames. As Seith tries to calm the fears of Valeri's children by telling a tale of Gadwyn Moonhunter, Aron confronts Eilwen about her actions at Longfalls and initially believes that Eilwen is the cause of unleashing the shadowy darkness over Longfalls. He is distrustful about her use of the shadow magic. Eilwen convinces him that the shadowy darkness that is spreading is not from her and must be stopped, and they make plans to leave Valeri and her children with Seith here in the wilderness, hidden outside of Longfalls, while she and Aron go on ahead to deal with Delos, the Iron Priest blamed for the spreading darkness emanating from High Crag. As we begin this episode, Eilwen's stats are Edge 2, Heart 1, Iron 1, Shadow 3, Wits 2. Current assets: Archer, initial box; Cutthroat, initial box; Shadow Walk, initial box. Current statuses: Supply 2 out of 5, Spirit 1 out of 5, Health 5 out of 5, Momentum 2 out of 10. Current debilities: None. Failure track 8 out of 24. Current unspent XP 3. And now on to episode 35 of Queen of Shadows. The companions, along with Valeri and her girls, hid in the copse of trees and passed the night. As dawn stretched forth, her wings of rose and plum and greeted the party, Longfalls below them came to life haltingly. Aron and Eilwen stood and looked down upon Longfalls, wrapped in their cloaks against the morning chill. Their leggings bedewed by the gems of last night's condensation that collected in amethyst beads upon the long grasses about their hidden campsite within the trees. From Longfalls, cook fires yielded frail white wisps of smoke that rose and mingled with the existing haze of the acrid sky that even now drifted upon eddies of wind like an open sore bleeding its sooty flow in reverse to mar the heavens. The result of last night's burning had left a half-score of homes gutted and charred to the bare bones of their blackened beams. Many still forms, the bodies of the fallen, were already being picked at by ravens. Others, a mixture of men, women, and even the smaller forms of children, were being burned on a pyre, growing heavier with bodies. "Harold's breath," Aron muttered with a sad sigh. "Do you think they'll recover?" she asked him. "Aye, they're Ironlanders," he grunted. "Our people. They'll recover. If the temperamental winds of the Veiled Mountains have taught you anything, you should know that we're a hard people, Eilwen, hardened by our hardship." our people," she said, then softer in a whisper. "My people," she added and stared at the bodies of the fallen, now a rich feast for ravens and crows. Her mouth firmed. "If we can stop Delos, they'll certainly have a better chance." Aron grunted. "Aye. Come on. We best let the others know your plan." Eilwen and Aron joined the others and explained her plan as she gathered up her gear and belted on her sword. "Aron and I must stop Delos if we can," Eilwen said. "Valeri, I'll leave some supplies with you, and if everyone is in agreement, I think it would be wise if Seith stayed with you until we return." She will lose one supply for leaving some supplies with Valeri and her children and with Seith. Let's ask a few more questions. Is Seith willing to stay with Valeri and her children? I think that is likely, and on a 10, I get a yes and. Well, it sounds like Seith has developed a genuine fondness for the children and maybe even for Valeri. She's married, of course, but perhaps Valeri is interested in a romantic relationship with Seith? I think there's a 50-50 chance, but on a roll of a 1, the dice say no and. Good on you, Valeri. For who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. And now back to the narrative. "Aye, lass, I'll stay with them and help them until you and Aron return," Seith said, and he tousled little Lyrie's blonde hair. The little girl smiled up at him, and to everyone's surprise reached out and took his hand. It seemed a bond had developed between him and the children during last night's story hour. Not only that, but Eilwen suspected he might even have feelings for Valeri. She had caught him staring after the other woman. "I would welcome Master Seith's aid until I can be reunited with my husband," Valeri said, with a polite smile to the man. Eilwen caught the subtle emphasis on the last word, and Seith's mouth tightened slightly, but he nodded. "I'll see they're looked after, Eilwen. You have my word." Eilwen and Aron said their goodbyes, gathered their gear, and set out towards High Crag. Not quite a day's journey to the west. Scratch followed behind, sometimes running and hopping, sometimes flapping his wings and flying for short distances. Okay, since the distance between High Crag and Longfalls is less than a day and the directions are rather clear, I won't use the standard undertake a journey move. I'll instead just ask the Oracle how it goes. Are there any troubles in the journey? Well, I think there's a 50-50 chance. On a roll of a 7, the Oracle says yes. Okay, great. What is it? Let's roll on action and theme. I rolled a 73, deliver, and a 44, faction. It sounds like there might be some scouts from Uzak's warband on the road. If you remember, Uzak was the one who had raised a warband and was making war upon the nearby settlements, trying to increase his dominion. It is he who captured Eilwen's father, Codvale, and chieftain of Frostbridge, Mabon, way back in the first episodes of our tale. Eilwen, Aron, and Seith knew that Uzak had plans of coming south and conquering other settlements under his iron fist. Knowing his band would be on the road to the south, this is the reason they moved through less traveled lands over the last several episodes, moving parallel to the marching warband to avoid them. But it seems that Uzak's scouts at least have arrived at last. How many scouts do they see? Let's roll a 1d4, and I get a 1. Is this scout on a horse? 50-50 chance, and on a 4, I get a no. Eilwen and Aron followed the sun's western trajectory as they marched along the road to High Crag. They stayed ahead of the pale yellow orb which occasionally peeked through a slow gathering of clouds to warm their backs. But by noon it had completely disappeared behind slate-gray clouds that threatened rain. Shortly after midday, they stopped at a junction in the road. where a right fork split off to the north, while their own route continued west to High Crag. They sat atop a large boulder, gray and flecked with colored lichen, and ate a short lunch at the edge of a fast-moving stream that gambled over slick, dark, moss-covered rocks. The road to the right, if you could call it that, lay rutted and forlorn as it climbed up into the mouth of a wooded valley thick with pine boughs and sturdy oak trees. This path, should they ever take it, would likely lead them to the settlement of Bleakstone, lands held by the Wolffang clan and their iron-fisted leader Uzak. Beyond the woods, they caught glimpses of the winding path as it crossed grassy plateaus and up into rugged hills and then low mountains. Those mountains, in turn, gave way far to the north to the very stone roots that made up their homeland, the Veiled Mountains. Such were nearly entirely swallowed by mist and distance. They didn't see any travelers as they perched atop their large boulder and watched the water flow past them out of the northern heights. The distant vista to the north put Eilwen in mind of Frostbridge and home. "I wonder how Father is getting on," she said, squinting, trying to make out any details distant miles to the north. "He wasn't exactly thrilled about taking charge of the settlement, you know." Aron grunted. "When a queen demands such, what can one do?" He smiled at her. "Father could never say no to you anyway." Eilwen didn't know if she agreed with that. There had been many times when Father's sharp no had kept her from danger, or worse. I wouldn't worry about him," Aron continued. "I'm sure he's well accustomed now to the perks of leadership. He probably has some silver-banded longhouse where he sits on a throne made from the bones of boar and bear, getting fat and old, drinking his fill of ale with a score of young women plaiting his beard with silver and gold." Such an incongruous image of her father's character made Eilwen laugh, and Aron grinned too. "I don't think there were so many young women, Aron," she laughed again. "I mean, I was the only one my age. The next was, who, Ansabel? And she was just turning 13. I don't see her putting threads of silver and gold in Father's beard." "There aren't many young women, believe me, I know. And I'm not about to marry a 13-year-old either, no matter what the settlement needs. Maybe in 6 or 7 years when the lass feels out, but..." Aron shrugged and with a frown cast a rock into the stream where it nicked off a bit of fractured granite and fell to plunk into the burbling water. "The settlement is dying, Eilwen. Not enough people or trade or something. But if anyone can turn it around, it's Father." Eilwen gave a hopeful nod, but she felt unsure. The thought of Father all alone, managing the decline of Frostbridge, and Aron's comment about it dying made her grin fade. Would the settlement even be there when they returned, or would it crumble to time and ruin like so much of these lands already had? Or would it remain for some years still, but fall under the sway of some larger power like Uzak and his Wolffang clan, who greedily gathered all they could, like a thief in the night who carefully gathered eggs one by one from an eagle's proud nest, until all were gone? Or would it fall many years in the future, to the darkness that spread from High Crag? She grimaced and looked up the northern road. That was the route the warband of Uzak must take to reach High Crag and Longfalls. She was sure of it. "I think we should get moving," she said, feeling uneasy. She put the packets of food away into her small pack and began gathering her belongings. "While we still have some daylight..." She froze when above the tumbling burble of the stream somewhere to the north, she thought she heard the sound of something else. Was it her imagination only, or was it the sound of stones scraping together that jolted her heart into a jog? "Aron!" she hissed, and mimed danger with her hands, and pointed into the trees to the north. Trees that ran along the south-flowing stream that tumbled and splashed over rock and boulder out of the mouth of the wooded valley. They stared into the dark bushes and trees, but saw nothing. Quietly, they drew their weapons. Eilwen, her bow, Aron, his axe. Scratch noticed the motion, and he crawled under a log, his snout poking out, the only thing visible. Aron shook his head in disgust. Eilwen and Aron both slid down low behind their boulder, trying to remain unseen from any eyes looking at them from the northern road. Okay, this is a face danger plus shadow. I rolled a 1 on the action dice plus 3 is a 4, not that great, against a 6 and an 8 on the challenge dice, for a miss. Okay, failure count goes up to 10 out of 24. And we must pay the price. Eilwen looked at Aron, and they both listened. He shook his head. With the gurgle of the stream and the wind cutting down out of the valley, they couldn't hear much else. There had been a scrape of stone on stone, as if someone had moved through the rocks along the creek bed. She was sure of it, but maybe... She shook her head and gave a small shrug. The hairs on the back of Eilwen's neck rose, and a sixth sense caused her to move. She rolled as a flash of something dark clattered off the rocks. The shot had come from somewhere behind them. She and Aron spun, and they caught a glimpse of a man in mottled green clothes ducking behind another boulder for cover. Okay, this is what I rolled up from before. Are they attacked? On a 50-50 chance, I got an 8. Yes. By just one scout? 50-50 chance. On a 1, I get a no and. I guess that means they see one scout at first, but he has others nearby. He has probably silently pointed out Aron and Eilwen's location anyway. Are there more than 4 scouts? I think that's unlikely. And on a roll of a 5, I get a no. Are there more than 3? Somewhat unlikely. On a 3, I get a no. So 3 warrior scouts will be their adversaries, armed with short bows, spears, and knives. This is a dangerous encounter, and our intrepid heroes are starting off on the back foot, being surprised. Had they been outnumbered something like 2 to 1 or higher, I would have set this as a formidable encounter. Okay, and because they are ambushed, we have to enter the fray using our wits. I rolled a 4 on the action dice, plus 2 for Eilwen's wits is a 6 against a 6 and 1 on the challenge dice. For a weak hit. Momentum is now 2 out of 10. She can bolster her position and get 2 more momentum or take initiative. I will take the initiative. Eilwen is going to secure an advantage by aiming. And she has the initial box for the archer asset. If you remember, it says, Archer, if you wield a bow, when you secure an advantage by taking a moment to aim, choose your approach and add +1. Trust your instincts. Roll plus wits and take +2 momentum on a strong hit. Line up your shot, roll plus edge, and take +1 momentum on a hit. Okay, so she is going to line up her shot. This is rolling plus edge. She's pointing at the location where the man was last seen, waiting for him to reappear. Aron cursed, pulled his shield into place, and growled, the muscles in his forearms taut as he gripped his axe. Do you see any others? Setting her back to the boulder they had hid behind, she placed an arrow into her bow. She shook her head, raised her bow, drew, and aimed. She felt the strain in her arms. No, but there might be more. Watch my flank, Aron. I'll handle this one. Aron nodded, moving into position to watch her blind side. So from Eilwen's archer talent, I think I can take a +1 with this. It's edge +1. She has an edge of 2, +1, so that's a 3 total. I rolled a 5 on the action dice. +3 mod is an 8 against a 9 and a 1 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. I will take +1 momentum. Her momentum is now 3 out of 10. That is from the secure an advantage move. She still has initiative, and she will attack when one comes into view. Okay, future me here, offering a correction that didn't make it in time to affect the gameplay. I think it was because I read the secure an advantage move wrong. On a weak hit, it says your advantage is short-lived. and for some reason I thought advantage meant I still had initiative or something. Anyway, I actually should have lost initiative here from the weak hit. Oh well, mistakes happen. And as the proverbial saying goes, this is water under the bridge. Well under the bridge, in fact, and 3 valleys down at this point. Back to the narrative. But soon the warrior moved around the boulder again for another shot, eyes scanning for them. She saw him first and let her arrow fly. Okay, this is the strike move plus edge. I am rolling 3 on the action dice plus 2 for her edge is a 5 against a 7 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. She gives plus 1 harm. She has a deadly weapon already that gives 2 harm. So that's a 3 harm total, and that fills up 6 progress boxes. But she loses initiative. The arrow took the man in the throat, and he fell with a gurgle, his fingers clawing at a wooden shaft, his own arrow and bow clattering heedless to the stones at his feet. Then a cry came at them from the other side. Eilwen spun. Aron saw it too. A man also dressed in greens and browns with a spear in 2 hands had jumped atop the boulder they were behind and thrust it down at him. Does Aron block the blow? I'll say he was watching her flank, so it's likely that he would spot something, but it also came from the boulder above them, not exactly what he expected. So I think that drops the likelihood down by 1 level to somewhat likely. But on a roll of an 8, I got a yes. "Look out!" Aron shouted and raised his wooden shield, blocking the blow, the spear etching a deep scratch into the shield's surface. A third man, similarly dressed for stealth as the other 2 had been, rushed at Eilwen with a shout. With speed born of fear, she hastily drew another arrow. Setting the projectile to her bowstring, she raised fletching to her cheek in a fluid motion. He was nearly upon her. She loosed. Okay, because she doesn't have initiative, this is the clash move, and she is rolling plus edge to shoot at an advancing foe. I rolled a 6 on the challenge dice, plus 2 for her edge is an 8 against a 5 and a 5. For a strong hit with a match. That is awesome. On a strong hit, inflict your harm and choose 1. You have initiative. You bolster your position and take plus 1 momentum. You find an opening, inflict plus 1 harm. She will take the momentum since the 2 harm she gives from her deadly weapon is already 4 more boxes, and that gives her 10 out of 10 boxes on the fight already, so momentum is now 4 out of 10. And I will now do the end the fight move against 10 progress versus a 4 and a 1 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. Her shaft leaped out like a coursing hound eager for its prey, and took the charging warrior in the chest. The force of the close-range shot buried the shaft nearly up to its fletchings, the point sticking through the man's back. The charging warrior fell to his knees, skidded amongst the rocks, and then slid backwards and to his side, clutching the shaft. After a final twitch, he lay still. Eilwen spun to help Aron, who had blocked yet another spear thrust upon his shield from the man standing above him on the boulder. With a war cry, Aron answered the attack, swung and cut through the shins of the man on the boulder with his axe, as if hewing wood. The warrior screamed, bloody bone splintering, weapons falling and rolling on the ground, trying to clutch at his ruined legs, blood pooling around his hands. Aron slammed him to the ground and pressed his knee upon the man's chest and raised his axe. The man froze, groaning in pain, his face draining of color from the blood loss. "Who are you?" Aron asked. "Elar," the man gasped and moaned, thrashing from the pain. "Please." "Not that. Who sent you and your friends?" Does this man answer? I think it is somewhat likely, and on a roll of a 5, I get a yes, but... "Uzak," he gasped from the pain and the pressure on his chest. Wolf-Fang Glen." "Are there more of you? Answer me." But the man didn't have a chance to answer. The pain was too much. And with a groan, his eyes rolled up into his head, and his head lolled to one side. "Must be an advanced party," Eilwen said. "There might be more of them. Quickly, look for anything that might be useful." and then we need to leave." With a frown, Eilwen took out her dagger and finished the man with a thrust to his chest. He gave a shudder, a final gasp, and then lay still. Aron raised an eyebrow. Eilwen withdrew the blade, wiped it clean on some nearby grass, and sheathed it. It was distasteful, but it had to be done. If he's alone, he'd bleed out anyway, and so this was a mercy kill. If he's not alone, he'd talk, and so this was prevention and our own preservation. Aron looked at her for a moment, then nodded slowly, and without a word, they went about looking for any useful supplies. Scratch finally surfaced, peering about as if expecting more danger, nose testing the air, and then snuffling at the bodies. Okay, this is a resupply roll plus wits. I rolled a 5 on the action dice, plus 2 for Eilwen's wits is a 7 against a 3, and a 2 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. Very nice. Take plus 2 supply. That's sorely needed. Supply is now at 3 out of 5. Eilwen took a couple of daggers from the fallen men and refilled her arrow supply from their quivers. Aron also took a second dagger. Okay, and then this from the match before. What did they find with those 2 matching 5s? They followed the tracks the scouts had left upstream a few hundred yards. There they found 3 saddled horses tied to a tree. Checking their saddlebags, they found some dried fruit and meat. They took the 3 horses and swung into 2 of the saddles, 1 apiece. Aron tied the final mount's reins to the rear of his saddle as a reserve. Then digging their heels into their flanks and bowing low over the necks of their new mounts, they galloped away west toward High Crag. Eilwen looked over her shoulder but saw nothing pursuing them from the northern tree line. She only heard the wind hissing in her ears and saw the deep green shadows under the canopy of trees where they had left the fallen bodies. Trees that seemed to huddle together in the wind as if whispering their witness over the day's bloodletting, or perhaps their rustling leaves were murmured prayers to the dead gods, vain and fruitless in their continued call for deliverance from all who deigned to commit such violence under their living canopy, as if unaware of the tomb-gray heavens above them that mocked them with their stony silence. All right, friends, before we hit the outro, we will do another listener review. This review comes from Young Grognard, with Young spelled Y-U-N-G. This review is from Apple Podcasts and was sent in at the beginning of this year. Young Grognard writes, "A great podcast, as others have said. Jared has an engaging voice for this type of content, which is a perfect combination for the style of show. The show itself is evocative and inspiring. You would be missing out if you didn't give it a listen." Thank you, Young Grognard, for that review. It means a lot. Evocative or no, you wouldn't believe how hard it is to get recording sometimes. I often find myself putting it off because honestly I have to fight through that tiresome imposter syndrome to even get started. So the fact that you find my voice engaging and find the show evocative inspiring is, well, it's inspiring to me, so thank you again. I hope that I can continue to evoke from the audio ether more tales that engage your imagination. All right, that's it for now, friends. Y'all have a great day out there. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/rollponderandplay. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at rollponderandplay, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.